Good afternoon, everybody. Thank you for joining me this afternoon. I'm Kristen Davies. I am a trainer with Can-Am Systems. Today's session, I am going to be taking a look at time card updates, so updates to the time card screen, and I'm also going to take a look at approvals. Few housekeeping items that I want to discuss. The Zoom meetings are all recorded. You will also be muted during the meeting. That will cut down on any background noise. It's recommended that you do not turn your camera on, so you can choose within the Zoom to cancel the video. And in order to hear the meeting, you do have to either log in and dial into the meeting or choose your audio option on your computer. All of our sessions will be recorded and will be made available via the Dropbox once the conference concludes. We will also be publishing all of our sessions with a PDF guide outlining what was covered and what is coming. These will be made available via bulk mailer and our PSA video library when the conference wraps up. Lastly, any questions you want to ask of me during the session can be entered into the chat box, and I will attempt to review all of the questions. If I cannot get to all of the questions during the session, I will reach out to you individually and respond to your questions. If you think of questions after the session is completed, please do not hesitate to send your email to our support team, support@canamsys.com. On my agenda today, I will be talking about the latest updates that we've made to the time card screen. I'm going to walk through the approval process. And I'm also going to take a look at best practices. And at the end, we'll have our Q&A. Some of the features that I am going to show you is the copy of a time card functionality that was added, ability to add a description to the time card in the approval screen, our date filters, changes to the date filters, approving all employees at one time, the addition of the category added to the time card screen, and lastly, allowing approval levels of a single employee who might be on your job as a type and also as a final approval level. As I mentioned, we have added the ability to copy a time card. This allows the user to create a time card based on an existing time card for a different employee. Selecting the copy filter, we want to identify who we're going to take the information from, the date that we want to take that information from, and who am I going to add this information to. I also have the ability to change the date to a different date if I wanted to. You'll get a message that my time card entry was created successfully. This is going to give you the option to be able to create multiple time cards without having to go in and choosing the create option. One of the other features or changes that we made to the time card screen was the filters, the date filters. I've set my date filters to be back in March. However, when you launch the time card screen, it will take the previous date. The other changes that we made when editing a time card, if you have a predefined date range in here, previously what was happening was the date filter would go back to the previous date. Now, if I were to go into a time card and edit the time card and come back, my date filters will still be present. We added the addition of the category to the time card screen. This allows the user to filter, if necessary, by the category. Next, I want to talk about the approvals. So I'm going to come over into another screen. I am logged in this database as a PM. And you'll notice that my date from is back in June. And what that's telling me is that I have time cards that I need to approve going all the way back to June. The 2 will automatically be the current date to up to and including 11:59 p.m. Please bear in mind that if the time that you were at, for instance, we're at 2:36, I will not be able to have any dates, future dates, so I'd have to adjust my time down. Selecting loading the time cards, I can now see the time cards that I am responsible for approving. Couple of options that we have changed. We've added the ability to add a description right at the approval level. The other options available that have been added are the ability to approve all employees by selecting the all employees option, or I can still select and go through and approve based on checking off that box. I have my drop-down list where it will provide me with the list of all of my time cards that I need to approve. Once I've made my selections of the time cards that I want to approve, I would hit Approve Selected. You'll notice I selected Approve All Employees, and it automatically added the checkbox for me. I'm getting my message asking me that I'm about to approve time cards. Do I want to continue? Yes. My time cards have now been successfully approved. And when I come back to my time card screen, changing my date filters, I can now see that the status of my time cards are sitting in a partially approved status. I am considered a first level approver, and I will be showing you how those levels look currently today. If I come back to my time card screen, I can now see I'm now logged in as my final approval level. I have the ability now to go ahead and approve at the final level, offering up the same options. Hit that load time cards and then approve, and your time cards will be fully approved. Some of the other items that I want to talk about are the time card rules that you can set on your database, starting with our rounding. We have the ability to round time cards, making a selection whether there be no rounding 1 minute, 5 minutes, or 10 minutes, etc. I also want to set my time card period. How often am I going to review my time cards and approve them? I have the options of approving on a daily basis, weekly, or every 2 weeks. And I also have to identify what is the first day in my work week. Next are our rate rules, where we want to make sure that the system will capture the appropriate rate based on the number of hours accumulated on a time card. My time card period is set to a daily, so my first level of my rate rules would be set to regular, and my max number of hours are set to 8. And what that will essentially do is, once I've hit that maximum of 8 hours, I will automatically roll into my overtime. I can as well set the max numbers of overtime hours I'm willing to pay on a time card. We also have time card exceptions. Time card exceptions can be used for deducting lunch breaks. So if you do not pay for your lunch breaks, you can create an exception, calling it lunch break. The selection of none means that there will be no payment for this time that this person is off, when the system will clock them out. We've set the time from start to 12 o'clock and our ending period to 12:30. So the program will automatically clock that user out at 12 and clock them back in at 12:30. I can also dictate the number of days, the days in the week that I want this rate exception or this time card exception to apply. We also want to talk about what we consider best practices. In our setup, we want to make sure that our time card approval setup is as simplistic as possible, thereby not having any issues with missed time cards. The more complex you get, the more issues you'll have with approving. So in our instance here, we have an employee type project manager as our first level of approval. And we've identified an individual as our final. Being the final approval level, I will have the ability to approve on behalf of the lower levels. Back here to my time card approval, I can change this to my employee type project manager, where I can approve on their behalf. The other best practice that we recommend is using your reports. Within the job management system, we have a number of reports available to you to use. I have filtered my reports menu option by putting in the word time, and it has given me 10 reports that I'm able to use. We recommend pinning any one of these reports to your reports menu option so it'll be visible every time you log into the reports menu. One of the reports that you might want to look at is the time card approval report. This will be filtered by employee by a specific date range. So you can narrow down your search for the time cards that you are looking for. Within this report, you'll have the ability to see the status of that time card, whether it's partially approved or transferred. Another report useful for you as far as your approvals and review prior to getting to that approval level would be perhaps the timesheet style 2 report. Again, I can date filter this. I can actually drill down and find it by a specific employee. If I don't wish to, I do not have to. I can simply hit submit after I've entered my date range, and it will give me all of my employees' timesheets within that date range. Another very useful report, should you want to use it, is the time card sign-off. Printing off a time card sheet for each employee and having them sign off on it, and perhaps having your manager sign off it as well. We recommend you use these reports simply to cut down on any errors when you finally do get to the time card screen and are walking through that transfer or the approval process. So what's coming for 2020? We will be making a few changes that will help benefit you as the user going through the time card and approval process. On the time card approval screen, at the bottom of each employee, we have our total number of hours broken down by the rate type. It's at the bottom of the screen, so we've decided we're going to move that up to the top of the screen by the name of the employee. We're also going to be changing the approval level setup, whereby as opposed to putting in your levels and moving them up and down, we are going to be assigning a designated number to that level. The upside to this is we could have 2 employees or employee types with the same level. And what that will provide our users with will be the either or scenario for approvals. This has been a request from a number of customers. If somebody is away on vacation and they need to have somebody approve, we can have multiple levels of the same number. The next level approver will now be able to approve if an employee type is not on a job. So our next level approver will be able to approve those time cards even if our employee type is not present. Another feature that we're going to be adding is graying out of time cards that are not applicable to your job. And what I mean by that, I could be a PM on a job and I have an employee that's worked for me on a specific day, but they also worked with another PM on another job. Those time cards will be grayed out for that other PM's jobs, but this will be beneficial, so I will be able to look at the time accumulated on that other job that I'm not on, so I can see how much time my employee actually worked for that day. And the last thing we're going to be changing is giving the ability to approve your own time cards. This will be a security permission that will be set up on the role. It'll allow your employees to approve their own time cards. Once they make that approval, it will show on the time card lookup screen in the status area of self-approved. Once your employee has approved their time card, they will receive an email of their approved time cards. I will now open this up to the floor for some questions. Let me just see our questions that we have. So the first question is, does the auto lunch break show on the time cards? What it does is it will show the time card. So if you punched in at 8 in the morning and you were still clocked into a job, the system will clock you out for that break period and then clock you back in. So effectively, you will see 2 time cards. Another question, do you still have to add each employee, such as a tech, to the job in order for them to be an option to approve their own time card? If you're talking about the self-approve, they will have to be on the job as an employee type in order for them to see that time card. Next question, what is the time frame for when these 2020 changes will be released? We're looking later in the summer to launch. Right now, they are in testing, and we're waiting for the testing period to be successful so that we can launch this out into the live databases. Part of that question is, will employees approve their own time cards from the web or from the mobile app? The approvals will always be done in the web. Next question, on approval of their own time cards, is this going to show only the employees' time cards and not the entire company? In your role, you'll be able to lock down the view of the time cards on the roles. So right now we have the option to choose view own time card, and that's what you would select. So they're not going to be able to see everybody's time cards. Any more questions from the floor? Well, if there are no more questions, oh, somebody just typed in. Is there a way to email out the time card sign off form? Absolutely. In the, I'll just go back to within our reports, we have this option called send email. You simply come in here, find your recipient, add them. You can put in the body of your email, and upon hitting send, that will be going to that recipient as a PDF. Another question, is there any technical documentation available that covers exporting PSA time card data into QuickBooks for payroll? At this time, there isn't any documentation. However, what we could do is we can set up a session with you to walk through. Currently, right now, when you are linking with or syncing with a QuickBooks accounting package, whether it be desktop or online, if you do select to transfer your time cards, those will populate into the timesheets within QuickBooks. From there, if you're doing payroll from QuickBooks, you can use that as your payroll as opposed to entering them into QuickBooks. follow-up question about emailing out the time card sign-off form. Yes, it's has to be it can be emailed out individually. We don't have the option to mass send at the end of a pay period for each person, but not a bad suggestion that we could take to our development team. A question about who to contact regards to the QuickBooks link. Send an email into support. Support will create a ticket, and that ticket will get assigned to one of our trainers who can walk through that process with you. All right, if there are no further questions, if you do come up with a question that you'd like to ask, as I mentioned, please don't hesitate to send it in to our support team, support@canamsys.com, and they will either answer it immediately or point you in the, open a ticket and have one of our trainers reach out to you to explain. Thank you very much. Our next session is our proven job management work orders, and that will be coming up shortly.